marginalized groups and social justice. Social inequalities are the biggest hindrance in the smooth functioning of a democratic government. In our society, social inequalities exist since times immemorial. Traditionally, the Indian society had been divided into various castes and subcastes, giving scope for social hierarchy. Varna system, which developed during the Rigvedic period, gradually became very rigid with the passage of time. In the social hierarchical order which was followed in ancient time, Brahmanas and Kshatriyas enjoyed higher status and commanded great respect, followed by the Vaishyas. The Shudras were at the last position in this order. The Shudras were considered as untouchables and were supposed to serve the upper castes, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. The condition of the Shudras was very miserable. They were ill-treated and deprived of their basic rights. They were not allowed to enter the temples, to draw water from public wells, etc. In this chapter, we will try to understand the condition of these oppressed people in the modern time and the steps taken for their upliftment. Who are marginalized groups of the society? These are the groups within the society which are most vulnerable to poverty and discrimination. They remained segregated from the society for a long time due to economic and social causes. The depressed classes, that is, scheduled castes, backward classes, scheduled tribes, minorities, etc., are now recognized as economically weaker sections of the society, also known as marginalized sections. The Constitution of India has made considerable provisions for their benefit and has provided them with special privileges. Scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Scheduled castes. The Constitution of India does not clearly define the term scheduled caste, but we can simply say that the caste which were formerly treated as untouchables are now known as scheduled castes. This marginalized section of the society is firmly stationed at the bottom of the social ladder. According to the census conducted in 2011, they nearly account for 16.6% of the Indian population. Scheduled tribes. There is no clear definition of scheduled tribes. In simple words, we can define the scheduled tribes as socially discarded and economically backward. They constitute about 8.6% of the Indian population as per the 2011 census. They mostly reside in forests and hilly areas. Other backward classes, OBCs. The Constitution of India does not clearly define the backward classes, but generally speaking, these are the weaker sections of the society, like scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. According to the Mandal Commission's report, they account for 52% of the total population. Minorities. Minorities consist of those sections of the society which are comparatively less in number as compared to other sections. Minorities may be in terms of religion, language, etc. According to Census 2011, the minorities account for 19.4% of the total population. Pie chart showing minorities 19.4%. Number 1, Muslims 13.4%. Number 2, Christians 2.3%. Number 3, Sikhs 1.9%. Number 4, Buddhists 0.8%. Number 5, Jains 0.4%. Number 6, other religions 0.6%. Constitutional provisions for safeguarding the interest of marginalized groups. Provisions for safeguarding the interest of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Our constitution makers were well aware of the injustice done to both scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So they made certain constitutional provisions to safeguard their interests. Some of them are listed below. Article 15. It states that every citizen should be treated equally without any discrimination. Article 46. The article states that it is the foremost duty of the state to protect all the sections of the society from all forms of exploitation and social injustice done to them. Article 17. It states that untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. The enforcement of any disparity on the basis of untouchability shall be a punishable offence. Article 338 and 338A. They state that there will be a national commission for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes which will ensure that the constitutional provisions for their upliftment are followed and implemented. Article 164. According to this article of the Indian Constitution, the state of Bihar, Odisha and Madhya Pradesh will appoint a minister in charge for the welfare of SCs, STs and OBCs. Whether or not these safeguards are implemented, the constitutional provisions meant for the upliftment of the SCs and STs have been implemented. Certain steps taken by the government in this regard are as follows. Number 1, 22.5% seats are reserved for them, 15% for the scheduled castes and 7.5% for the scheduled tribes in government jobs. Number 2, seats are also reserved for them in educational institutions. Number 3, free coaching is being provided to the students of these caste groups for taking part in various competitive examinations such as IAS and IPS, etc. Number 4, vocational training is being provided in tribal areas. Number 5, book banks have been set up in schools, colleges and higher educational institutions to provide books free to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes candidates. Number 6. Free hostel and residential facilities are provided for the girl students belonging to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in higher educational institutions, that is, universities, medical institutes, etc. Constitutional provisions for safeguarding the interests of other backward classes. Number 1, Article 16, Clause 4 of the Indian Constitution provides reservation of seats for OBCs in central and state governments. Number 2, Article 340 provides for the appointment of a commissioner to investigate the condition of the OBCs and make recommendations for their betterment. As per the provision of this article, Kelkar Commission and Mandal Commission were set up in 1953 and 1979 respectively. In 1990, V.P. Singh recommended the implementation of the provisions of Mandal Commission. After a great deal of controversy, the Supreme Court gave the following verdict on OBCs. Number 1, 27% seats will be reserved for the OBCs in government jobs. Number 2, the armed forces and sensitive higher posts will be kept outside the purview of reservation. Number 3, OBCs are given relaxation to clear civil services examination in 7 attempts instead of 4 and are also given relaxation in qualifying marks in written examination and in interviews. Implementation of these provisions. Number 1, the Supreme Court of India has ordered the Union Central Government to implement 27% reservation quota for 1,238 backward classes. Number 2, relaxation in upper age limit by 3 years in direct recruitment to government services is also given. Constitutional provisions to safeguard the interests of the minorities. The Constitution of India has laid down certain provisions in Article 29 and 30 to safeguard the interests of the minorities. These provisions are: number 1, any person residing in any part of the Indian territory having distinct language, culture, and traditions shall have the right to conserve the same. Number 2, no citizen shall be denied admission to any institution run by the government or using government aid or state funds on the ground of caste, religion, race, language, etc. Number 3, all the minorities have the right to establish and administer their educational institutions. Article 350B of the Indian Constitution authorizes the President of India to appoint a special officer to safeguard the interests of linguistic minority groups. He is also empowered to nominate 2 members from the Anglo-Indian community to the Lok Sabha to ensure them adequate representation. The rights of minorities are fully protected in our country. Our constitutional experts have made enough provisions to safeguard the interests of marginalized groups. These provisions have also been implemented. Relationship between social and economic inequalities. Number 1, India is a vast country where both social and economic inequalities exist. Both are different in some aspects, but are linked to each other. Number 2, economic inequalities are caused due to unequal distribution of wealth or accumulation of wealth in a few hands, while social inequality exists due to caste discrimination. Number 3, both social and economic inequalities prevent people from access to facilities enjoyed by the privileged ones. Reservations. While drafting the Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar tried his best to demolish the structure of the caste system and made equality a fundamental right. He was also well aware of the caste-based discrimination. The Dalits were ill-treated by the upper castes. The Indian Constitution, in its preamble, proclaims the establishment of a social welfare state, since its aim is to uplift the socially weaker sections of the society. With this end in view, the government adopted the policy of reservation for socially and educationally backward classes. Besides giving reservation in parliamentary seats to the SCs and the STs, they were also given advantage in terms of job reservation, admission in schools, and higher educational institutions. Likewise, SCs, STs, and OBCs, the minorities, are also given reservation in various aspects of their life so that they can improve or uplift